What's up, guys? Bernard Tibbetts here. I am the lead organizer for a Santa Fe and Albuquerque hiking group called Afoot, and this is my YouTube channel. If you would like to subscribe, please click the buttons below as indicated. And if you would like to join our group, there is a link in the description below. By clicking that link, it will take you to a website called meetup.com where we have our group page. And by going to that page, you'll be able to register as a member and be able to also register for any of the hikes we have coming up in the future. Now, I want to take some time to, the rest of this video is really just to take some time to revisit 2020 and celebrate our accomplishments, milestones, and highlight some of the events from last year as we move into 2021. So starting with memberships, let's look at some of the numbers. In 2020, we added 477 new members. We surpassed 2,000 members for the first time, and at this filming, we were currently at 2,415 members. So it's really, really awesome. Thank you all. I'm glad to see that there's interest in this meetup, in this hiking group, and I welcome all new members, and I look forward to meeting you in 2021 on a hike. So thank you so much. I counted up all of the events for 2020, and it totaled 57, and those events included many hikes. So here's our hiking list. Some of these hikes were scheduled multiple times through 2020. We also had several classes scheduled through the year, and also there were some extracurricular things that were either viewing online films and discussion, or it could have been an outside group sponsoring a presentation or speaker. So it was a pretty busy year despite the fact that we had COVID. Not quite as busy a year as we would have otherwise, but certainly it was a very successful year of scheduling things and working through the COVID issue. So let me take some time now to kind of go through and point out some of the special hikes that we did over 2020. Starting in January. January is our Snowshoe Month, so I always schedule the snowshoe class, the snowshoe race, and snowshoe hike. The class is called Winter Hiking Basics, where I cover the basics of winter hiking, and that would include safety issues, the essentials that you should be carrying in your pack, clothing choices, as well as choosing gear for winter hiking, with an extensive discussion on choosing snowshoes. That class is then followed up by the snowshoe race called the Santa Fe Snowshoe Classic. Now, this is actually not my event. It is sponsored and organized by a running group here in Santa Fe, but I've participated many times, and I really love this event. It's really a lot of fun, and it's just a way to get outdoors in the wintertime and get into the snow. Now, I do make it a point of putting it onto my agenda, my schedule, and make it available to my members so they were aware of that and they participate in this event. And then that is then followed by one or more snowshoe hikes, including a hike up Alamo Vista, and that's a trail that runs up the West Ridge from Aspen Vista into the aspen trees and then out onto this really beautiful clearing called Carl's Meadow. We had a great group of 10 people, great company, great snow, great weather. This was led by my first co-organizer, Annie, and she did a great job. Everybody had a great time. So we thank you very much, Annie. We look forward to future hikes led by you. March was gym climbing for beginners, and that's where we met at the Santa Fe Climbing Center, and we were introduced to the basics of gym climbing and had a great time. We were introduced to the staff at the Santa Fe Climbing Center and got to rub elbows with some of the people that are a part of the climbing community. April was the time that I took to rebrand the website. If you had been a member before April, you would have signed up under the name Wilderness Seekers. And it was a name that I came up with several years ago. It kind of made sense at the time, and I still would like to capture the spirit of wilderness. But I guess the issue that I had was that it didn't fully describe what it is that the group is all about, which is primarily a hiking group. So I thought long and hard, and I decided to change the name. I put out an announcement beforehand saying that the name would be changed, and then shortly after that, I changed the name to this, and this is what it's known as today. We are afoot, a Santa Fe and Albuquerque hiking group, Seek Wilderness. Now, wilderness is still a very important part of the meetup group, and that's why it was in the original name. But I'll expand on that in a future video so you understand the connection and the importance of wilderness to afoot. Also important is to remember what the other goals are of the group, and they are as follows. I want to be able to provide connection, I want to offer community, I want to offer inspiration, and then in addition to that, education and empowerment. I want you guys to learn enough about the outdoors so that you can go lead your own adventures. And that's really the ultimate goal of this group. Let's get everybody outside. In April, I scheduled an online class called Rocky Mountain High, a beginner's guide to the Colorado 14ers. Now, this is not a new class. I've taught this class many times at the downtown library. It's a great venue with a great audio-video system, and I love meeting you guys in person. But because of COVID, I was challenged with how to continue my education, so I then worked on adapting them all for an online venue. And they are all updated now to be presented online, and I think I've succeeded in doing so. I'm getting good feedback on the classes. In May, we joined for the Telluride Mountain Film Festival. It is a film festival that is hosted in Telluride, Colorado, but because of the COVID, they decided to do it online for the first time. So we as a group participated by signing up for the festival. I think the pass was $90, but it gave you access to over 100 films. So at our leisures, we were able to sit at home and watch the films, and we got together occasionally and we discussed what we saw. So that was a pretty cool event. In May, I led a hike called Sandia Mountain Wilderness up the Agua Sarca Trail, and this is a trail that's in the Sandia Mountains, starting in Placitas, New Mexico. It goes up the north ridge of the Sandias up to the Sandia Crest, and then we came down on the North Crest Trail. Extremely beautiful views to the west and beautiful views to the east. I led a hike called Cerros Hills State Park hike. This state park is off of Highway 14 along the Turquoise Trail, north of Madrid, New Mexico, and it's an old mining community, mining area, which has now been turned into a state park with wonderful trails and wonderful vistas. I led in June a hike up to Deception Peak and Lake Peak, among others. And this is a reminder when I do these that, we're very fortunate to be in Santa Fe because we're within 15 miles to trailheads that lead up to 5 peaks over 12,000 feet high. And that includes Deception Peak, Lake Peak, Tesuque Peak, Penitente, and Santa Fe Baldy. Also in June, I led a hike called Shinrinyoku in Black Canyon. Shinrinyoku is Japanese for forest bathing, and this is a slightly different kind of hike where we meet in the Black Canyon campground for breakfast, and we do not talk. We basically eat in silence and take in the forest, the sounds, the smells, the feel of the forest. And then after our breakfast, we gather our things and we go on a little hike up Black Canyon and back, and we call it a day. September was Stewart Lake hike. This is one of my favorite hikes in the Pecos Wilderness. We start up one side of a canyon, up a trail called the Windsor Ridge that then leads to Stewart Lake, and then we come down the other side of the canyon along this unnamed, unmaintained trail back to the cars. And it's one of the most beautiful hikes I think I do in the fall. In October, I led the Wheeler Peak hike. This is Wheeler Peak, which is south of the Taos Ski Valley. This is an important peak because it is the highest peak in New Mexico. It stands at 13,162. And this is the very first time that a foot has organized this event. And it was a really great day, really good weather, really good group of people. We had a nice dinner in Taos on the way back from the hike. In November, I scheduled something called National Parks, America's Best Idea. This was an attempt to view the first 2 episodes of that documentary series that was produced by Ken Burns for PBS. Technology, I learned, does not allow it, so I basically gave people the links to watch these on their own, and then we kind of discussed them afterwards as far as our feelings of these films. But they're outstanding cinematography, and it's a really good history lesson on where the national parks originated. And then finally, in December, I started a new series of hikes called the Urban Hike series, and this was an attempt to do a hike that wasn't quite as aggressive, something that anybody can do, minimal mileage, minimal elevation gain, but it was an incentive to get people out in the colder months, whereas we may be less likely to do so because of weather or bad roads or snow. So anyway, that was the wrap up of 2020. I thought it was an outstanding year. I had a great time, and I think a lot of people did as well. So thank you for the wrap up of 2020. And in my next video, I'll talk about the layout for 2021. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next video.